Marathon Man wasn't just a thriller, it was a production riddled with near disasters. Dustin Hoffman drilled teeth without anesthetic, while Laurence Olivier battled cancer so severe no insurance would cover him. Test audiences vomited in the aisles, forcing cuts to an 8-minute revenge scene. Zell's brother actor survived the Hindenburg and faced false blame, and Evans lobbied Parliament to ensure it. Here are 15 weird and surprising facts about Marathon Man. Fact 1. Producer Robert Evans was determined to cast Laurence Olivier as Dr. Zell, but Paramount Pictures refused because Olivier was uninsurable. The legendary actor was battling prostate cancer so severe that Lloyd's of London and every other insurance company refused to cover him. They believed he would die mid-production. Evans wasn't willing to give up Britain's greatest living actor. He called his friends Merle Oberon and David Niven and asked them to arrange a meeting with the House of Lords, the upper body of the British Parliament. Evans flew to London and personally lobbied British politicians to pressure Lloyd's of London into providing special coverage for Olivier. The strategy worked. Lloyd's reluctantly agreed to insure Olivier for the duration of filming, though at astronomical rates. The insurance premium alone reportedly cost more than some actors' entire salaries. Paramount was furious about the expense, but Evans insisted Olivier was worth it. The gamble paid off spectacularly. Not only did Olivier survive filming, but his cancer went into remission shortly after the movie wrapped. His chilling performance as the Nazi dentist earned him an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor and a Golden Globe win. Olivier lived another 13 years, working steadily until his death in 1989. Fact 2.
What are you going to do now? Shoot me?
Laurence Olivier performed the entire role of Dr. Zell while undergoing aggressive cancer treatment that included heavy doses of painkillers just to make it through each day of shooting. The medication had a devastating side effect. It destroyed his short-term memory. Olivier's memory problems were so severe that he frequently couldn't remember more than 1 or 2 lines at a time. After delivering a line perfectly, he would immediately forget what he just said. Crew members watched in amazement as Olivier would nail a take, then ask what scene they were filming. Between takes, he had to constantly review his lines because the medication wiped them from his mind minutes after memorizing them. Despite these massive obstacles, Olivier's performance is flawless. His portrayal of Christian Zell is cold, terrifying, and unforgettable.
Is it safe?
I don't know what you mean.
The famous "Is it safe?" interrogation scene required dozens of takes, and Olivier had to relearn his dialogue before each one. Director John Schlesinger later said Olivier's concentration and professionalism under such conditions was the most remarkable thing he'd ever witnessed. The performance earned Olivier widespread critical acclaim and proved he could still deliver at the highest level even while battling a terminal illness with medication that should have made acting impossible. Fact 3. An 8.5-minute sequence was filmed showing Roy Scheider's character Doc brutally beating multiple assassins to death after they killed his colleague. The scene was graphic, violent, and essential to understanding Doc's character. Test audiences couldn't handle it. Some literally vomited in the aisles, while others walked out. The sequence showed Doc meeting an aging spy named Ape at an airport bar. When Ape went to the bathroom and didn't return, Doc investigated and found him murdered on the toilet by 2 assassins. Doc completely lost control and killed both assassins in an extended brutal fight scene. The violence was unflinching and showed Doc as deeply flawed and traumatized. After the disastrous San Francisco test screening, director John Schlesinger and editor Jim Clark cut the entire sequence. Writer William Goldman called it a grievous deletion that hurt the film. Without the scene, Doc seems like an invincible action hero instead of a damaged, desperate man. The sequence also explained why Doc fought so hard while mortally wounded to reach Babe's apartment. He'd seen Ape die alone and undignified, and he refused to die the same way. Goldman later said cutting the scene was one of the biggest mistakes in the film, but the studio refused to release it with that level of violence. Fact 4.
Unless, of course, you...
The infamous dental torture scene was originally much longer and more graphic. Early cuts showed extreme close-ups of the drill entering Dustin Hoffman's teeth, blood spurting, and prolonged shots of Hoffman's face contorted in agony, but after test screenings where audience members passed out and vomited, the scene was heavily trimmed. The original version included actual on-screen drilling in the second torture sequence, with graphic insert shots of the dental instruments penetrating Hoffman's teeth. Lobby cards and promotional stills show scenes that never made the final cut. Zell torturing Babe for much longer with various dental tools in prolonged close-up. Director John Schlesinger and editor Jim Clark removed the most graphic footage after realizing audiences couldn't physically handle it. Even with the cuts, the scene remains one of the most disturbing in cinema history. It ranked number 66 on Bravo's 100 Scariest Movie Moments and is still referenced as the definitive torture through dentistry scene. What's terrifying is that the version audiences saw was the toned-down cut. The original footage was so disturbing that it's never been released, even on special edition DVDs. Some things are too brutal even for horror fans. Fact 5.
Is it safe?
I don't know what you mean.
Laurence Olivier's repeated question, "Is it safe?" during the torture scene became one of the most iconic lines in thriller history. The American Film Institute ranked it number 70 on their 100 Years 100 Movie Quotes list, placing it among the most memorable dialogue in cinema. The brilliance of the line is its ambiguity and Olivier's chilling delivery. Babe has no idea what Zell is asking about. He doesn't know about the diamonds, the safe deposit box, or his brother's involvement in anything. The question is meaningless to him, but Zell asks it over and over with increasing menace while drilling into Babe's teeth without anesthetic. The scene taps into universal dental anxiety. Everyone has feared the dentist's drill, and watching Zell use it as a torture device while calmly repeating,
Is it safe?
I don't know what you mean.
creates psychological terror. Olivier delivers the line with detached curiosity, as if he's asking about the weather rather than inflicting agonizing pain. The phrase entered popular culture immediately. It's been parodied in countless films and TV shows, from comedies to dramas. Dentists reported patients jokingly asking them, "Is it safe?" before procedures. Fact 6.
33 when we got out of Germany.
Dr. Christian Sell's nickname, Der Weiße Engel, the White Angel, was directly inspired by Nazi war criminal Joseph Mengele, who was called the Angel of Death at Auschwitz. Writer William Goldman deliberately modeled Sell on Mengele, one of the most notorious figures of the Holocaust. Goldman's novel explains that Zell worked as a dentist at a concentration camp, using his position to extort diamonds from Jewish prisoners desperate to escape. He started by demanding gold, but quickly worked his way up to diamonds as the price for potential freedom. Zell saw the end of the war coming early, and smuggled his brother into America with a fortune in stolen diamonds hidden in a safe deposit box in New York. The parallel to Mengele was intentional. Both were doctors who perverted medicine into torture, both conducted horrific experiments, and both escaped justice after the war. Mengele fled to South America, while the fictional Zell hid in Uruguay. The film tapped into real-world anxiety about Nazi war criminals living in comfortable exile while their victims were dead. Time magazine ranked Zell as one of the 25 greatest movie villains of all time. His white-haired, grandfatherly appearance made him even more terrifying, evil hiding behind a respectable mask. Fact 7. The role of Klaus Zell, Dr. Sell's brother who dies in the opening car crash, was played by Ben Dova, the stage name of Joseph Spa, a vaudeville acrobat who survived the Hindenburg disaster in 1937. He wasn't just a survivor. He was briefly a suspect in causing the explosion. Spa was traveling on the Hindenburg to make a performance at Radio City Music Hall. He'd brought his dog Ula, who was kept in the airship's cargo area. During the flight, Spa repeatedly got permission to visit his dog, which required him to access restricted interior areas of the Hindenburg that were off-limits to passengers. When the airship exploded while landing at Lakehurst, New Jersey, Spa survived by performing acrobatic feats to escape the burning wreckage. His agility saved his life. He literally tumbled and flipped through flames and falling debris. But because he'd been in restricted areas of the ship, Captain Max Pruss and others suggested Spa might have sabotaged the Hindenburg. The FBI launched an extensive investigation. Spa was eventually exonerated. Investigators concluded he had nothing to do with the disaster, but the suspicion haunted him. By the time he appeared in Marathon Man in 1976, he was 71 years old, still performing minor film roles until his death in 1986. Fact 8. Dustin Hoffman lost 15 pounds for the role of Babe Levy and ran up to 4 miles every single day to ensure he looked like an authentic marathon runner. But he didn't stop there. Before every scene where Babe needed to appear out of breath, Hoffman would run a half-mile just for that specific take. Producer Robert Evans later explained that Hoffman refused to fake the breathing. If the scene showed Babe exhausted from running, Hoffman would actually run until he was genuinely gasping for air before filming. In New York, locations where running running wasn't practical, Hoffman had a personal sauna brought to set so he could get sweaty and depleted between takes. Director John Schlesinger said Hoffman's dedication created problems. They sometimes had to wait 20 minutes for Hoffman to recover enough to do another take. But the authenticity shows on screen. When Babe runs through New York streets in those famous chase scenes, Hoffman is genuinely exhausted, his breathing ragged and real. The famous myth about Hoffman staying awake for 72 hours to prepare for the torture scene is false. Hoffman later admitted he'd been out partying all night for personal reasons, and Olivier's "try acting" quip was a joke, not criticism. Fact 9. Marathon Man was one of the first 3 feature films to use the revolutionary Steadicam, a newly invented camera stabilization system that changed filmmaking forever. More importantly, it was the first Steadicam film to be released in theaters, beating both Bound for Glory and Rocky by 2 months. Inventor Garrett Brown had developed the Steadicam in 1975, allowing camera operators to capture smooth, flowing shots while walking, running, or moving through spaces that would have required expensive dolly tracks or created shaky handheld footage. Marathon Man was the perfect test case. The film's running and chase scenes through New York City streets demanded fluid camera movement. The Steadicam was used extensively for the chase sequences, following Hoffman as Babe runs through Central Park, down city sidewalks, and through crowded streets. The technology allowed Schlesinger to keep the camera close to Hoffman during long-running shots without the footage becoming unwatchably shaky. The success of the Steadicam in Marathon Man helped prove the technology's value to Hollywood. Within a few years, the Steadicam became standard equipment on major productions. The famous Rocky training montage and The Shining's hallway sequences all owe their existence to Marathon Man helping perfect the technique. Factor 10.
If you will just give me a chance to get...
The climactic final confrontation between Babe and Zell takes place inside a Central Park water treatment facility. But that interior wasn't filmed in Central Park. It was a massive set built on Stage 15 at Paramount Pictures' Hollywood lot at a cost of $135,000. Production designer Richard McDonald constructed a detailed replica of a water pumping station interior, complete with working machinery, water tanks, and the industrial architecture needed to make it look authentic. The set was so large it required an entire soundstage and took weeks to build. The decision to build the set rather than film at the real location came down to control. Schlesinger needed precise lighting, multiple camera angles, and the ability to film dangerous action sequences involving water, firearms, and explosions. Shooting on location would have been impossible given the logistical constraints and safety requirements. The $135,000 price tag in 1976 money is equivalent to over $700,000 today. For comparison, that's more than 2% of the film's entire $6.5 million budget, spent on a single set for one sequence. But the investment paid off. The Reservoir Showdown is one of the most memorable thriller endings of the 1970s. Fact 11. The ending of Marathon Man was completely rewritten by screenwriter Robert Towne after Dustin Hoffman refused to film the original version from William Goldman's novel. Goldman hated the change and called Towne's ending downright stupid. In Goldman's novel and original screenplay, Babe takes Zell to Central Park at gunpoint and simply shoots him dead. It's quick, brutal, and final. But Hoffman felt the ending was anticlimactic and demanded something more dramatic. Director John Schlesinger agreed, so Paramount brought in Robert Towne to write a new finale. Towne created the reservoir confrontation where Zell accidentally falls on his own blade and dies in the water. Goldman thought this was ridiculous. After everything Babe had endured, having the villain die by accident felt cheap. Goldman argued that Babe earning his revenge by deliberately killing Zell was essential to his character arc. The dispute contributed to tension between Hoffman and Goldman throughout production. Hoffman has said Goldman blamed him for ruining the film's ending and spread stories about Hoffman's difficult behavior in retaliation. Goldman never forgave Hoffman for forcing the change. Despite Goldman's complaints, most audiences and critics found the Reservoir ending satisfying, but Goldman went to his grave believing the original ending was superior. Fact 12. Marathon Man was produced for $6.5 million and grossed approximately $21 million at the domestic box office, making it a significant financial success for Paramount Pictures. When international box office and home video revenue were added, the film's total gross exceeded $28 million. The film opened in October 1976 to strong reviews and solid ticket sales. Critics praised Olivier's performance, Schlesinger's direction, and the intense thriller elements. Time magazine called it the year's most cunning entertainment, while Saturday Review described it as a potential neoclassic of the thriller genre. For Paramount, the success was crucial. The studio had been struggling financially in the mid-1970s, and Marathon Man's return on investment helped stabilize their position. Producer Robert Evans had championed the project when others at Paramount wanted to pass on it, and the film's success vindicated his judgment. The movie continued earning revenue through television rights, cable broadcasts, and especially home video releases throughout the 1980s and beyond. It became one of the defining thrillers of its era and helped establish the paranoid conspiracy thriller genre that dominated 1970s cinema. The dental torture scene alone became so famous, it drove continued interest in the film for decades. Fact 13. The famous story about Dustin Hoffman staying awake for 3 days to authentically portray Babe's exhaustion, and Laurence Olivier responding, "Why don't you just try acting?" has become Hollywood legend, but it's mostly false. Hoffman later admitted on Inside the Actors Studio that the tale was distorted. He hadn't stayed up for 3 days as method acting preparation. He'd been out all night at nightclubs partying for personal reasons, not professional ones. He showed up to set looking exhausted because he was genuinely hungover and sleep deprived from nightlife, not from artistic dedication. Olivier did make the try acting remark, but it wasn't a criticism of method acting. Olivier knew exactly why Hoffman looked terrible and was just joking with him about his wild night out. The comment was playful teasing between colleagues, not a philosophical debate about acting techniques. The misinterpretation spread because it fit a narrative about old-school theatrical actors versus new method actors. Olivier was trained in classical British theater, while Hoffman represented the American method approach. Fact 14. On the final day of shooting, Laurence Olivier visited Dustin Hoffman at his house bringing a gift, a leather-bound copy of The Complete Works of William Shakespeare. Then Olivier sat down and spent hours reading scenes from multiple plays aloud to Hoffman's delight. Despite the try-acting myth suggesting tension between them, Olivier and Hoffman actually developed deep mutual respect during filming. Hoffman later said working with Olivier was one of the highlights of his career. Olivier admired Hoffman's commitment and intensity, even if their approaches differed. The Shakespeare reading session was Olivier's way of sharing his theatrical heritage with a younger generation. Olivier had spent decades performing Shakespeare on stage and screen, and he wanted to pass that tradition to Hoffman. Hoffman was moved by the gesture, later calling it one of the most special moments of his life. Fact 15. The opening credits of Marathon Man feature actual footage from the 1964 Tokyo Olympics, showing Ethiopian runner Abebe Bikila winning the marathon barefoot. The choice wasn't random. It established the theme of endurance that runs through the entire film. Bikila was a legendary figure in marathon running. He won the 1960 Rome Olympics marathon running completely barefoot because the shoes he was given didn't fit properly. Rather than wear uncomfortable shoes, he ran 26.2 miles without any footwear and won gold. In Tokyo 1964, shown in the film, Bikila ran in shoes and won again, setting a world record. The footage of Bikila connects to Babe Levy's character. Both are runners who endure pain and push through exhaustion. Babe's nickname comes from his resemblance to baseball player Babe Ruth, but it also suggests innocence that will be tested. Just as Bikila endured a marathon, Babe must endure torture, betrayal, and violence. The opening establishes that Marathon Man isn't just a thriller. It's about endurance as a metaphor for survival. Bikila's triumph represents the human capacity to push beyond limits, which is exactly what Babe must do to survive. So there you have it, 15 weird and surprising facts about Marathon Man. From Olivier's cancer battle to audiences vomiting in theaters, this thriller was more intense behind the scenes than on screen. If you learned something new, smash that like button and subscribe for more movie facts. Tell me in the comments which fact shocked you most.